Hi, Erin.
Hello.
Oh, it's so lovely to see your face after. Oh my God, I was thinking about this morning when we first connected, which must be like 2018, I
It's
think.
crazy.
I know, it's wild. And you were literally at well, it felt like at your kind of peaking, kind of sharing everything and everything blowing up, and you being like, oh my God, this is happening. Like this is out there. This is happening. And it was just really cool to see you grow, shift, evolve, and just see the power of this insight on human design of what you've been creating, because it's been amazing to witness. So firstly, like, massive congrats on this crazy journey that you've been on, which is now here with the books as
Thank
well.
you
So,
so much. It's been a crazy journey. It is so
yeah.
funny to look back and be like, wow, I mean, what, we met 7 years ago.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, it's been wild. This does kind of feel like it feels like a full circle. It feels like I'm kind of arriving at like I can't say the end, but it just feels like I'm like buttoning up a big human design moment, and I'm curious what comes next.
Yeah, and isn't it fascinating because I think, people I've chatted to with books, there is that moment with a book that weirdly it does feel like, as you say, the thing that's getting wrapped up, that
Yeah.
chapter, or the cherry on the cake for that moment that like ends something, and begins something else as well, or expands on something. So it feels really powerful that, that the book, that I know from that you've been manifesting like the right agent, the right publisher to get this amazing book, How Do You Choose, um, out into the world. So yeah, what a time.
What a time. I know. It feels really exciting, and it also feels like, wow, I can't believe I did it. It's here.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's here. And the book is first of all, I mean, we briefly were chatting before I hit record.
Mhm.
But the book is phenomenal. I really, really enjoyed it. I really love how you have shared so much detail and insight in such a I want to say with such a light, chatty tone through stories. It's amazing because it really gives you that balance of not being overwhelmed by lots of knowledge, and the fact that choosing, of course, like, how do you choose? Like, it's the perfect gateway into talking about human design, because how do we choose as human beings on this planet right now when we're bombarded by so much choice and options, and, let's be fair, like, being disconnected from our bodies. And I think this, how you've done it, is incredible on setting this up for people to literally do what the title says. Like, how do you choose? I want to ask, was it difficult to choose the title? Because sometimes as an author, it's really hard to be like, well, which way do I go in here? Like, what is this? Or was it because through all of your client sessions and all of the blueprints that you created, like, choice was something that was loud and clear?
I think I started giving my first talks on human design many years ago, but the talks were always called How Do You Choose?
They were,
They
even then.
were. And so even then, and so I think that when we thought about this book, it felt like, it goes beyond decision making, but it does feel like decision making is so at the heart of it. Like, how do we choose the right partner and the right place to live and, the right approach to our business and the right clients? And so it just felt like it was such a clear title. There were
Mm.
some other ones that we considered. Like, I always loved one that was like, that's why. Because I feel like so often I sit with people and they're like, that's why, that's why. That's why I do things this way. But like, I think that how do you choose is such a, our goal, my goal with this book is, and I share this with you a little bit, is to make human design so much more accessible to the mainstream,
Yeah.
to kind of like, and I think how do you choose does that because I think most of us are trying to figure out how to make decisions in a way that actually works for us. And human design is such a cool tool to help us do that.
Yeah, no, it really comes through. And I found that the stories that I was reading, obviously I was reading it for me based on my type. I'm a generator, 5-1, wait to respond, sacral authority, which makes sense in so many ways. And it's so interesting when, I've had, a break from reading human design, not being in it, and then getting to read myself again in your book. I was like, oh yeah, I really needed to hear that today. Or like reading the stuff around relationships was really powerful. Like it actually makes me feel emotional, like just talking about it, because the way that you describe people's choices around relationships, um, how it sparks something in them, and how I need to remember to like make sure I'm doing the things I love and I'll attract the right partner. Like
Yeah.
it was like, oh yeah, you need to remember to do that, Nat. Like go and do the things that you
Mm,
love, and the right partner is just going to show up. Because it's, for me, that's been the thing that I don't have currently. And so
yeah.
reading that chapter in your book, I was like, oh yeah, I needed to hear this today.
Oh my God, it makes me emotional hearing that. But yes, I think that I think what was so fun in putting it together was that, I can tell you those things. Like I could be like, okay, do what you love and the people will come. But I think like actually talking to people and being like, oh my God, that actually works. Like of course, like I believe that, but I'm not a generator and I don't have that strategy. And so I don't have the personal experience. Like that really does work. But like to sit with people and be like, oh, like this is just how it all flows and how it all happens. So I love hearing that because, no matter whether you're a newbie or an expert, I feel like we need to be reminded of these things all the time. Like even for me reading my chapters that I wrote and have read 1 bajillion times, I'm just like, even last week I was like, had to do a final read through and I was like, oh my God, this is why this friendship is feeling really strained. Like I need to take a step back from it. Like it's just so funny how it always surfaces new things,
Mhm.
regardless of how deep we've gone in the system.
Yeah, no, completely. And it is a there's that familiarity reminder. And I also loved the prompts that you suggested to be like, remember to do this, and have you thought about that? And for me, obviously, again, that generator bit, the thing that I took that was so loud of like, don't construct a vision of a future partner, like just see who shows up. And I think the way that you shared that in a story of you expressing it to a guy in a client session, and weirdly it sounds an odd thing to say, but because it was a guy that was in the session, it was also like, oh, this is this is different. And it was
Yeah.
a guy that was, it was a really, like, you could tell. And I was like, oh, I'm looking forward to reading the other chapters of based on other people I know, so I can read the other
Yeah.
stories,
Yeah.
because you want to know the other stories.
Me
Because you
too.
like, you picked the woman who chose, like, the story you said about the client that then was like, I'm not getting married. Like, like that's not a small set, like, client session. Like
Totally.
that's a big
It's
session
a
to
big
hold.
thing. Totally. And like it's really oh gosh, yeah. So many crazy moments and it was so cool to actually kind of like bring those to life and share them because I think that I've just been so lucky to kind of sit behind the screen and watch people or in person and watch people have these like revelations that like change their lives, and I remember sitting with, or not, I remember like with my students now, I teach a lot of students how to share human design. And I think like the first piece that I share is like, you have to be so responsible with the way that you share this knowledge and like share it in the most empowering way because people will make big decisions. They'll realize that a relationship isn't right or that this job is correct or like they'll make these big pivots because human design reminds us of like how do we actually choose the thing that's right for us. But yeah, that was a big one. And also I just love what you said about the stories. I was sharing with Natalie before we started that it felt like a bit of an experiment to try to share human design through story because I've never seen it done before and but it just to me seemed way more interesting than just inundating people with all this information. But even like I am reading this book like, 1 bajillion times and I'm like still finding the stories interesting, which I find hilarious because I'm like, oh, like this is so, it makes reading so much more fun. Because you're like, who are these people? Like, how did their lives change? And like, was with them, and yet I'm still curious about it.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
It's that whole, it brings it to life. Like it doesn't feel like you're reading a book of knowledge, which you are, but
Yeah.
you're reading something that is living, and that's what comes through in the book energetically is like, oh wow, like this is alive. Like this is a living, breathing tool, principle, system, do you know, way of living.
Yeah.
And it really is encapsulated that in the book. And so, if you if you're listening to this and you're new to human design, or you're really entrenched in human design and you know everything, like this book is going to give you things that you might have forgotten, that you didn't realize. But I think the story element is something that is just, yeah, it's exciting. It's like I want to say it's like walking into someone's secret world, if that makes sense. It's like having a snapshot
Totally.
of that, because the way you've written it is really descriptive, and so it feels like you're in the room. It feels like you're in the room of the client session, versus it feeling very flat on the page. Again, feels super living, which is really cool.
Yeah. And it is such an intimate peak. Well, oh God, that honestly, those things make me so happy to hear.
Good.
Writing
Well,
a
it can
book
be
is hard.
tough as an
Yeah.
I know, I get it. I get it completely. As an author, you're like, but did anyone read this? Like, this has put a lot of time and energy and hours and choices, of
Totally.
what to include and what not to include, and so it can feel, yeah, it can feel a lot. It can
Yeah.
feel a lot.
Yeah.
Um, you like break down throughout the book type, strategy, authority, and you've really honed in on those pillars, which is like, I mean, I think really cool, because it just gives you that overview like straight off
Yeah.
the bat. It is the way in. um I was intrigued, was one trickier to write than the others? Was there one that you like wanted to start first with? I know that you're a projector,
Mm,
wait for invitation, emotional authority.
yeah.
Was there one that you were more excited to write again, in like a in like the choice? How do you choose where do you start in the book?
Totally.
Or was there, where were you drawn as a writer to start?
You know, it's so funny. And I was sharing with you before we started, I cut out 150 pages of the book. I had chapters written on a lot of other elements. And honestly, like, it just would have been overwhelming. It
Yeah.
would have been like you would have had like a book that you're like, I don't even know where to start. And like I didn't want readers to have that experience, even though I still have 150 pages to share someday. I think that, I'm trying to think of where I began. The whole thing was restructured in the last 6 weeks of it. Um, as tends to happen. I was like, I'm done. And then I was like, no, we're blowing it all up. But I think where I started was career. And that's kind of what felt most natural to begin with. And then I moved on to relationships later. Um, I think that, I mean, yeah, it was really interesting for me writing about my own type, because, and I will say that I wrote every chapter through the lens of people that I knew with that type. Like it was just when I was talking about generators, like it's my
Oh,
husband,
your
and
husband, yeah.
yeah. And like when I'm talking about manifesting generators, like, yes, it's my daughter, but it's like, I think of my friend Amber, who like, we had babies at the same time. We're just like in it together in all the ways right now. She has a book coming out in August too. So we've just been like, we're
Cool.
just in the journey. And so like, and she's such a like quintessential manifesting generator. If you guys know Amber Ray, she's so
Yeah.
amazing. And so I feel like I like thought about her and like as the like it was just so fun, I think, to it just the whole thing felt so like human. It
Mhm.
didn't feel like these concepts. It felt like what does Amber need to hear? And like what do I need to know about my husband? So yeah, so I don't think any of them were harder to write. I think what made them so fun to write is that I got to go back into all my session notes and kind of remember all these moments with people. I did so much like soliciting feedback on Instagram of like, okay, you're a manifestor. Like, what do you really need in a relationship? Like what have been moments that have been hard? And so it felt like even though I was the one typing, it felt like such a collective experience.
Community.
of like, this isn't just me regurgitating what I've learned, it's me understanding people's actual experiences and trying to translate that into a story and into a paragraph in a way that makes sense to people. So yeah, I think that like I would say one section that was really hard for me was the open centers, which weren't and didn't end up being included. And I think part of that is that they just felt too complex in a book. It required people to analyze their chart in a way that is just going to be inaccessible to some people that are newer. Um, but that wasn't even included. Like even my editor and I kind of couldn't fully edit that section because it was just like, I don't think it belongs here yet. Like it could be its own book entirely, but I don't think that it belongs in this one.
Yeah, and it's funny how you then intuitively, again, how do you choose? You pick up on
Totally.
energetically of where how your body responds, how it feels right. Yeah, based on all of that and listening to how it feels emotionally in the body, where it's coming from and how it's communicating with you as a choice of like, yeah, this is a no, this is a hard no, and trust, and again is that trust piece.
Yeah. Oh my God. And there were so many tears because it's like, but I want to include it, you know? And it is really hard in those moments to be like, oh, I'm forcing this. It's not happening. It doesn't
Mhm.
feel right. And like, and you're so right that I feel like even my own design was just like played such a role in trusting that process, you know, even if it didn't always look exactly how I thought it might.
Yeah, no, completely. And I loved your again that personal touch. Like you peppered the personal through the book, in all the ways of how you started, what it's meant for you, and that was really beautifully weaved in and just gave you um the clarity of and the knowledge of like of your background, and
Yeah.
also like hats off to your numbers at the front. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like
You mean like
seriously, like
the
the
number of
that
people?
I
Yeah.
was like the 500,000 the people. I was like, it's incredible. Like
Yeah.
really, and it's needed. And so
Yeah.
yeah, and the way that you've just the personal stuff that you've put in is especially around, as you say, talking about career first, because that's how this journey all started for you on this career level of
Yeah.
this isn't working, like
So true.
this isn't working. So it kind of makes sense that that's the first bit that you were drawn to write, because it's what you it's what brought you to the work.
It is, you know, and it's in, yeah, it is funny. And I love that you like laugh at, or not laugh, but like we're amazed by the numbers because like I
Yeah.
didn't include that in the first intro. I was like, no, 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 like that does not need to be mentioned, you know? And then like my partner was reading it. He's like, I think like you have to like set yourself up, you know? There, I think what was really helpful for me with this book was like having multiple eyes on it because there
Yeah.
are just some things that like I wouldn't think to include. And even my editor at Harper One, like even when she read the proposal, she was like, I just want more of you in the story. I
Mhm.
like need, and so like I didn't even think to include my personal story, to include my own anecdotes, to include any of that. But she would like before I even started writing was like, I need a lot more of you. And so like it was so helpful to hear that because I think without that feedback, I would have kept it a little bit more impersonal.
Yeah, and I think it just means makes you come across well, and you are. It's not just come across, it's like, yeah, and I am the authority in this. Like I have experience. I'm not just talking I'm not just talking out my arse,
Yeah,
basically. And it
right.
comes and it is, and there's a presence. Your presence in the book is awesome. So it's really well done. So yeah, again, just sharing that with you.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, honestly, as a projector, if any projectors are listening, you know, so much of being a projector is really feeling that level of recognition. And it is funny writing a book when, you know, I wasn't sending it to clients or anything like that. So, like, I didn't really have any of that recognition throughout. Like, I really had to kind of trust my own process. So, to now have it be out in the world and receive that feedback, I'm like, oh, okay, like, this is something okay. This is something good. This is something that can really help. So, it just reminds me as a projector how important that recognition is.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
fuels us.
No, completely. And
Yeah.
what I really also loved and I wanted to mirror back to you, also on an intuitive level, is I was like, obviously in your story you talked about how you were working in like tech startups, and it was the tech
Yes.
side of, you were, obviously really well educated, tech back, came from a tech
Yeah.
background. And then now here you are guiding people to a platform, and you're growing the tech AI side. I was like, oh, isn't this funny for Erin? Like it's all come full circle. It's like she gets
I
to do
know.
all of it, but you get to do the tech stuff too. And it's
Yeah.
like that tech startup bit that you start the book like
So true.
describing is like all of a sudden like your worlds merging and colliding of how can I bring the tech part
Yeah.
into something that you love to share? It's freaking genius.
Totally. I know. It's so true. It's like I didn't even really, I don't think I've even like fully processed that because when I first started showing human design, it was really just through sessions. But I also
Yeah.
realized that didn't really allow me to scale in the way that, I was kind of seeing the interest for and in a way that
Yeah.
I didn't have the capacity for. And so ultimately we became a technology company,
Yeah.
because it was just that's what allowed us to scale and to reach more people. And so like it is funny that that's what it became.
Yeah, I was as I was reading, and like I was getting that as a download, and I was like, oh yeah, like that makes complete sense. Which
Yeah.
is, yeah,
And we're
it's
only
it.
headed more in that direction. Yeah.
And I was about to
So
say,
true.
and you're going more in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know.
Not to give you messages. As I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, because it's that how can you leverage tech and human design, again, that ancient and the modern, and bringing it together. And and for my community, watching, listening to this, Erin took my quiz to find what her top three types are. And
So
when you
fun.
said you were a creator, light bulb, and noticer, I was like, oh, that makes complete sense. Because as I was reading the book, I was like, oh, Erin gets to really share her creative self in this book that she doesn't normally get to share in other ways. Like it gave you permission to be like the creator. And then
Hmm.
the light bulber, which is like the visionary you,
Yeah.
gets to come out and play with the tech stuff that's coming through and the new
Yeah.
ways of sharing things. And obviously, your noticer is what you do in client sessions and
Yeah.
noticing themes and patterns. So I was like, oh, this is brilliant.
That's so fun. They all felt so resonant.
Yeah.
There was all with all the questions. I was like, gosh, I have no idea where I'll land. I'm so curious what you'll say. And then I was like, oh, these all feel so true. And they also feel so aligned with my human design. Because
Mm.
what was the second one again? What's it called? Not
Light bulber.
the light bulb or like, do you, oh yeah, there's a channel in human design. I was just looking at your chart really quickly. There's a channel in human design called the Freak to Genius. I don't know if you've
Okay.
heard of it. It's very
Yeah.
much like these kind of aha knowings and moments that kind of arrive out of nowhere and it feels like they've got no origin.
Yeah.
And these people are meant to be very visionary, but also just like on the cutting edge, kind of just
Hmm.
seeing things before others do. And so I have that channel. It's like part of my grand purpose in my chart. And so it's funny reading that. I was like, well, that feels totally aligned. And so much of obviously being a noticer is so aligned with being a projector.
Yeah.
Um, and I also think
Yeah.
the creator one feels very aligned too, because like I think that like, I am a projector, which in human design, if you're new to it, is like your energy ebbs and flows. You're not meant to be consistently on, but like I've actually got like a lot of energy in my design for a projector and like a lot of like ambition and drive
Hmm.
and and like a lot of intensity. And so I think that like that creator piece felt actually very aligned with that as well.
Yeah. No, it makes complete sense because that creator bit of the things of how it's been channeled through for me is it's like for you there is that power in what you notice, again, the power in your feelings, that power, the power
Yeah.
in your creative feelings, but also for you that connection to the collective piece, which you really really have, of like what the collective needs or what your creativity mean, like what that needs from
Yeah.
you within it. But that shadow side of the creator is that like low, like the lows, the burnout, the not making time, the
Totally.
self-criticism.
So vulnerable to
um
all of that. Yeah. Susceptible. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
so it's interesting because people have like been like, oh, this make, as you said, they're like freak to genius, or
Yeah.
been like, oh yeah, that's it's a couple of people have commented on channels that are like, oh, that
So
fits with a certain channel. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like, just seeing how, again, I love how things get created to, um, in the end, describe energetics,
yeah.
describe how, as humans, we move through the world with the choices that we make. And how we can find balance, because in the end it's about having confidence, feeling good in our choices and what that is. And for you, and I just feel like this creative side of you is really loud, and it's the bit that you have to balance the most. It's the bit that wants more play, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's, over the next little while, the creator in you, Erin, is gonna be
I
doing its
love that.
thing.
Yeah, no, it's such a good reminder for me, you know, and I find, it's funny hearing you talk about the shadow side because that I find is so useful in human design, knowing like what is the wisdom, what is the shadow, because you can just bring awareness to like, oh, I could show up in this way in a more sustainable way or an aligned way. But
Hmm.
I think hearing that shadow kind of like, like just burnout and pushing too hard and all that stuff, like that is so easy for me to kind of get lost in, and it really prohibits me from kind of stepping into that more creative creator person, because I'm just kind of funneling my energy towards the wrong thing. So I just love that framing because even just hearing that, I'm like, oh yeah, I so see those two sides, and I see when I get caught in one rather than the other.
Yeah, and it's the same. It's again the light bulber and the creative both have that around feeling like you're not supported and needing support, and having that support around you is a game changer, and that recharge bit is like a must. You need recharge.
Yeah,
You can have too many ideas. The struggle to turn off is loud,
yeah,
but you can't feel like you have to go alone, and that's really loud
totally.
in this next phase, next chapter.
Oh,
And the shadow, as you said, the shadow bit is so important, because when you were in your book, when I was reading about the generator again, it was the bit about sucking the energy out of a room, around when a generator is like got into shutdown, got
yeah,
into shutdown mode, and is like, nope, nope. I was like, yeah, definitely. Again, like definitely guilty of that, and
yeah,
and also having that shadow awareness of it is, again, like when you have that awareness of the stuff that's in the shadow, that then makes you get that intuitive hit of need to bring aware need to bring awareness of this. And also for me, it made me reflect on where I know either I'm doing that now or I've done it in the past, so I can then see the theme and the pattern of the
yeah,
noticing that goes with it, if that makes sense.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for this to be out in the world for people, because it's so needed. It's really,
I
really, really
too, I am curious to see. My hope is that it is accessible to people that, of course, love human design or are new to human design, but also to people that are genuinely curious about how do they choose? How do they choose the right job if they're like at a moment of transition in their lives? Like, I'm really curious whether this can be a book for them that they can look
Mm.
at and be like, oh, yeah, this job isn't right. Or, oh, I need to like show up this way for my partner differently because I think that and I frame this at the beginning for, those who haven't read it, which will be everybody. I think that, human design is a very mystical system with mystical origins, and it's also very practical. But I think the way that I present it in this book is not as a thing that you must believe or a thing that I'm trying to convince you of. It's more just as an interesting framework to look at your life and think about how you choose and what you choose and why you choose it. And so, yeah, there's a lot of curiosity around whether it can really cross the chasm to reach people that are not historically open to systems like these.
Oh, and I really feel like it is. I think on a business level, of people who make big choices every single day, I think that crossing the market into getting it into their hands, and the way it's laid, yeah, it's there. It's like, well, why wouldn't a business leader leading a team of 10,000 people, why wouldn't they want to know how they choose things? Like,
100%, you know?
why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, as you say, hey, we're in a society now where it's the mystical versus the logical, there's a new openness to this stuff in a new way. So the timing, again, timing of the book, of where it is and where it's coming out, again, of getting it in the right places that gets to people that wouldn't normally choose it, is it's there.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your take on human design and intuition as like the connection between the two? Do you feel like you can see how your intuition shows up for you through your chart, whether it's through your type, your strategy, probably your authority, more so, but when you read someone's chart, can you tell how dialed in they are, or how they would kind of work through their intuitive kind of choices or intuitive knowings?
Yeah, I think what I would look at in somebody's chart is their authority as the first piece.
Yeah.
And the authority, if people are new to it, is around how you make decisions. And it really is around how your inner knowing speaks to you. Whether it's through like, it's funny for you in your chart because like you've kind of got two of them interplaying with one another. Like you've got a very strong intuition, no surprise there, but also very strong gut feeling, and they kind of like feed into each other. So it's like a visceral feeling in your belly, but also like a quiet knowing and like voices you hear and whispers. Like I don't know what form it comes for you, but it's very active. Whereas for some people, like their knowing might emerge through their voice, or it might kind of come through being in the right space or through kind of seeing what threads remain true over time. So I think that human design is really powerful at helping people know how to actually access their inner knowing in a way that is consistent and reliable.
Yeah.
That's one piece. And then there's another piece around kind of there's an intuitive center in human design. So there are some people that might have intuition show up in really consistent ways, which for you would be the case. Like it's not a consistent thing like at 5 a.m. every day, but it's more like I know what my intuition feels like. I know how it arises. I know like the feeling in my body. Whereas some people can have their intuition show up in very varied ways where it can like show up a little bit differently every time through different experiences. So I think that it speaks a lot to it. But I do think what I love so much about human design and is that it often, like, even though I'm sitting here telling you what your authority is and your type and your strategy, it is all an invitation for you to reconnect with yourself to see how you choose. Like, if I sit with somebody and they're like, if you came to me and they're like, I don't know what job to take, I can't tell you take this job, but I can ask you questions in a way that drops you into your gut feeling in a way that you will likely know. So I love that kind of just returning people to their own authority over and over again.
Yeah, completely. And I found that the book, again, it dropped me back into, and it was this really important reminder of, stop pushing that. Stop pushing. Stop trying
Yeah.
to make shit happen in those ways.
I'm going to feed a baby. Is that all right?
Yeah,
Even
of
though
course
we're,
it is. Oh, hello, gorgeous.
this
Oh,
is a new one.
hi. Oh, hi, monkey. Oh,
I
look. She's
know.
like, I want my mummy.
She's
I
like,
need
what
my
is going
mummy.
on? What
What
is
is
that
going
bright
on?
screen?
She's like, all the lights. What are
I
we
know.
doing?
I
What
know.
are we
Mo, what are you doing?
doing?
What were you
Right?
saying?
Um, I was just saying how um yeah,
Sorry,
how
it's
it
such a distraction.
no, yeah, distraction. It was a reminder for me for not pushing again
Yeah.
on work, on relationships, of like not pushing again, of like finding that balance. And again, it was stuff that I'd forgotten, that I needed to be reminded. And it weirdly, that it gave me permission to do the things that I already, like, again, that you already know.
You already know.
But reading it gives you permission to trust yourself even more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's funny. You feel like we like have that trust, and then you read it
Mm.
and you're like, oh, there's still ways I'm not trusting it. I'm curious, like you mentioned this a little bit, but for you, you are sacral authority, like you said, so it's all about making decisions based on that visceral, in the moment gut feeling that doesn't need space or time to settle. It's just clear. Like, you obviously know that, but like, yeah, what was your experience reading the relationships piece? Like, do you feel like that's a thing that you trusted in relationships with people?
Yeah, I think for me it's that I've trusted the yes, but it's not been, I think I've questioned it then because it's not been long term. So they haven't been long term relationships. So then you doubt the yes of the initial
Mm.
feeling of the following the gut kind of like, yes, this is the thing to pursue. And I think for me, I have found that it's like, yes, and then the learning of the partner and the learning of what it is for me intuitively happens very fast. Like stuff doesn't stay in the shadows. So I get to learn about the person intuitively very quickly of, of what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
So for some people that might take longer than sometimes what
Right.
happens
It
what
might
I'm
be like a
noticing.
prolonged.
And
Yeah.
so then yeah, it then shifts. So yeah, that's been really interesting on that vibe. And the same with like choosing houses and stuff. Like people will be like, yeah, but it's like the perfect location and it does this, and I'm like nope, nope, something
You
better,
just
nope.
know.
And I think it's really and I think for anyone, I think you can be, it sounds weird, but like you can be better at listening to stuff in some areas of your life than
Totally.
others on choices as well.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
houses and manifesting houses and listening to that I'm easy, but yeah, the relationship bit is the thing I'm definitely um moving through currently, and reading the chapter on on the stories around relationships for my parts was like, oh yeah, thank you, Erin, this is what I needed to read today.
I think like one of the pieces I'm also most excited about is people reading the chapters of the people in their lives, whether they're partners or
Mhm.
friends or kids, because like, especially in the relationships piece, so much of it is also like, how can you best be supported in a relationship?
Big time.
Like, by like and I think that people need that. Like, I can't tell you how often I sit with couples that are experiencing so much friction as I share about,
Mm.
not because there's a fundamental disconnect, but just because they don't understand how one another works.
Yeah.
They don't understand that their partner needs to talk things out when they immediately know something. They don't need their they don't understand their partner needs to be invited in or like ask open-ended questions. So I hope, there is something around knowing how to enter into the right relationships in the first place and then how to actually connect once we're in them in a way that honors both people's designs.
Yeah, big time. And I had a one-on-one session with you. Oh, I want to say it was like
So
2019,
many years ago.
2018. And the relationship I was in at the time, you said they need to give you yes, no answers and you'll be able to give them an answer. And it was a silly thing. As you said, it's like, hey babe, what do you want to eat? And I'd be like, oh, I don't know. Or like, where do you want to go out? I
Totally.
don't know. But they were like, but then giving them is like, no, Nat will respond better if it's like, do you want Chinese or do you want Indian? Do you want to go to this restaurant or that restaurant? Because I'll know in my body the choice because you're giving me a choice, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is. I know exactly how to respond. I know exactly how to choose. Again,
Hmm.
back to choices. And that was a game changer. And so I now, when I'm feeling that, or I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm making other people frustrated because I can't choose, I will say to them, like, give me definitive options and I'll be able to give you an answer straight away.
There's just like often so many simple things. Like again, it's like it's again not that you don't know, it's just that you're
Mm.
not being asked in the proper
Hmm.
way.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that just extends to so many parts of our human design where it's like if we know how to actually support somebody in a way that resonates with who they are and is likely very distinct from the way you are, then like things can just feel so much better. I just like it's such a relief when I sit with parents and kids or families or partners or whatever of being like again like you just don't understand how different you are
Yeah.
and I feel like the more we understand it the closer we can become.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
And How is motherhood making you feel like you're having to make different choices with your human design? Has that been like a massive learner?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that like it's been confronting because I
Hmm.
feel like as a projector, again, we're like just not here to be doing all the time. We need a lot of
Yeah.
space and time alone. And like I feel like I knew that before having kids, but I think having kids really made me realize that so deeply because all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I need time alone. And also like my capacity is just it's limited,
Yeah.
So I think that I do feel like it's actually brought everything up in my human design in even a more intense way than others because like my energy is also just not available for all the things.
Yeah.
So I have to become like so much smarter
Specific.
about where I use my energy. Yeah. And like also around being invited, it's like I don't have infinite time for my community. None of us do, but like just being really selective about my relationships. Like I just feel like I've had to really live these principles in a much more intense way because like the time that I have is just different than what it used to be.
Yeah.
And also like I will say like I have a manifestor daughter and a manifesting generator daughter. So no projectors in my family so far. Um, and I think I'm also aware of the fact that like they're so different than me. So it's really allowed me to look at them through different lens. And it's also made me realize like, I'm gonna be the mother they see, the model they see. So I think that the areas in which I was in my shadow in ways before, like it just has made me more eager and inspired than ever to like move out of them and work through them because like that's what they're gonna experience.
Yeah, I liked what you shared about your dad in the book around how he used to make time for himself and be like, yeah, I'm not coming to the family do. I'm just doing my own thing, and how you'd get frustrated
Oh
about
my
you'd be like, what are
God.
you doing? Why are you not showing up? And now you're like, ah, yeah, that makes sense. And isn't it funny that I'm just like, as you're talking, that bit of the book like popped in as you were talking, because it's so funny because you might have the same with your girls being like, why does mum need her time, alone time to like recharge? And it's obviously like, again, that like ancestral
Yeah.
healing bit through the chart on choices and energy and what that is really interesting. That what you're healing with your dad, it's getting reiterated with your two, and how powerful that is.
Totally, and obviously I can't control like whether the way that they're going to perceive
Yeah.
me, but I can also articulate what I need.
Yeah.
Like I think it is so funny that my dad had a similar design to me, and yet I was so threatened by it growing up because it was like, why are you taking time to yourself? Why are you like running upstairs during a family gathering to like read or whatever? Like, and now I'm just like, God, he's really good at being a projector.
Yeah.
Like he
And now
just
you're
has
like,
really
oh yeah.
nailed. Yeah, I'm like he's done it so well, and I still remind my mom of it, where she's like, gosh, he's like doesn't want to socialize or do this thing in a moment. I was like, he needs like a little space, So like it is funny how it's been so helpful looking back, but I will say currently it's still so helpful with my relationship with my parents,
Yeah.
kind of looking at their design. So, but yeah, I can't wait to see how it unfolds with my kids because right now my husband's a generator. So as of now, we have 4 of the 5 types represented in our house.
Yeah. Which is freaking awesome.
I know. I like didn't
I
even really
I
realize it.
love
And
that.
I was like, wait, no, we've got everybody. So and even, my daughter here is 5 months in a couple days, which is crazy. But also like I already see the manifester in her.
Yeah.
So it's just like a crazy thing to be like, God, they're like, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
gonna
even
be,
in the non-verbal, it's
yep.
already there as an energetic imprint or quality, or how she's communicating with you without, all of it without, even it just shows you that you can make choices. Again, bringing it, you can make choices and communicate things that you need through choice without words, and how,
Yes.
again, that these types, the strategy, the authority, and all of it is also is non-verbal.
And it's so like innate.
Yeah.
It's like I think it's always so fun for me to sit with parents because their kids are often expressing their design so purely. And then we kind of get conditioned out of it as we get older and are like, we should be something else, which is why it's so cool when parents know their kids' designs. Um, but I feel that where I'm like, wow, like she's not talking. She's like still a little blobby, and yet she's such a manifester. Like how is that possible?
It's really cool.
I
It's really,
know.
really cool.
It's really, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds.
Yeah. Oh, Erin, this has been epic. This has been so awesome. Oh, look at her mushroom. Oh, it's cute. Oh my God. It's
I know,
just
it's
the
overwhelming.
cutest. It's
The
just
whole,
it's just the cutest thing.
I know, just in the back of her little head. Got a
Oh.
very, I know. This has been so wonderful. I'm so grateful to you for having me on, but also like I'm so happy to hear how much you enjoyed the book and how it offered you what you needed to hear. I think that that is the whole goal.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, no, it's awesome. So big congratulations and wishing and knowing that all the eyes will be there and the copies will be out in the world and it will be helping and guiding people to make all the choices that they need and yeah, it's gonna be epic. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna say like where people can get the book, but obviously all the usual places. And I just saw that you obviously because we're recording this in advance, that you're doing an audiobook too, that you just finished doing the audio.
Yeah, you can actually already buy it, which is crazy. You can like pre-order it all. I know. I just
Amazing.
recorded it last week. Yes, I'll give you the link for the show notes, but the
Cool.
book is called How Do You Choose? It does require you know your human design. So if you don't yet know it, you can look it up at humandesignblueprint.com.
Yeah, amazing.
Cool.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you. This was such a treat.
Thank you.